You wouldn't believe how far some people will go just to make a bottle of wine, and Tasmania is about as far as it gets. There's more than just grapes in a bottle of wine. My name is Tyson Stelzer. 10 years ago, I was a high school science teacher. Today, I'm on an incredible journey in the world of wine. What excites me most is discovering the dramatic landscapes and the diverse characters that come together in a glass of wine. Come with me and step into the lives of the people of the vines. Northern Tasmania. This must be one of the prettiest places on earth to grow vines. And I'm here to catch up with 6 winemakers. The most important time of the year. It's harvest. I'm excited to see all of the action that's going to transpire. More than that, to see a little insight into the lives of the people that make the wines. Just outside Launceston in Tasmania's north, radiant blue water reflects sweeping hillsides graced with idyllic vineyards. 50 kilometres northeast, the undulating slopes of Pipers River are home to some of Tasmania's most famous wines. With cool seasons and unspoilt landscapes, these are some of the most sought-after vineyards in the country. No surprise to find more than 50 estates at the cutting edge of Australian wine. Young upstarts, industry pioneers, competitive husband and wife teams carving their stories into the flavour of every vintage.
Wine's a very personal thing, whether it's how you make it or how you drink it or what varieties you like or styles.
When Joe and Lou Hollyman first visited the Tamar Valley, they fell in love with an old run-down vineyard at Gravelly Beach.
The vineyard was planted in 1986.
That's an old vineyard for this part of the world. How long have you been here?
We've been here since 2004.
A decade on, Stony Rise is still one of the smallest vineyards on the Tamar, and Joe is one of the most laid-back winemakers you'll find anywhere.
Vintage can be a fairly, mentally quite a stressful time, depending on the season and how everything's going. We try and make it as relaxed as possible, and I don't think it is really that stressful.
The pace is just right for this former Tasmanian wicketkeeper.
So I'd go to England and play cricket, sort of became getting out of going to university.
And he never did get any qualifications in winemaking. How do the whole berries change the wine at this point?
Not being a scientist, I'm not really sure, but some guy in Burgundy told me that, you know, it adds complexity, so be good enough for them, good enough for me.
I trust Joe with what he's doing, really. Well, I know that sounds, I know people would be very surprised, but his method is working.
I've come up with my way and that's just the way we do it. Best thing about not being trained in what I'm doing, I don't know the consequences.
It's proven to have worked so far.
Working together is not a major issue really for us in that we do have reasonably well-defined roles.
I look after all of the books, all of the accounting side of things.
I come up with ideas and want to do things and Lou says no. Yeah, so she just says, no, we don't have any money, so we can't do that.
We end up agreeing in the end somehow.
I do agree with you, dear, that's right.
Got to say, I've heard what goes on in this place, and I'm pleased your shorts are on.
Yeah, well, that's just something that we keep to ourselves a little bit.
I don't think either of us take ourselves too seriously on the outside. You're in charge of the succession plan.
Yes, yes. Not sure if you're in it.
Under the surface, Stony Vineyard is a serious operation.
There's a little bit more seriousness there because of the responsibility, a family responsibility, I think, and having your own business.
I do what any other small business owner does, and that's as many of the roles in the business as they can possibly fit into the day.
They're farmers facing all the struggles of Australian rural life.
We need to make more wine because we simply don't have enough. There's a huge demand for our wine.
Sadly, the volumes are down, but Look, you can't turn the tap on when we haven't got enough.
When people leave our cellar door or our vineyard, what I'd really like is them to walk away going, wow, that's real.
What drives a family to invest their lives in an industry at the mercy of the elements?
I honestly knew nothing about growing grapes. I'd only ever made wine and, a fairly big winery before. And then, fortunately, I met Tim, so he came along and saved the day, literally.
When winemaker Beck Wilson went looking for love, she found the vineyard manager of her dreams.
Both Tim and I had been married before, and Tim was in Victoria and I was in Tassie, and we actually met through an internet dating website.
Was the plan.
But it was pretty amazing the way it worked out. With Tim sort of being in viticulture and me in wine, and it was just would end up being a very good match, which was good.
But it's no fairy tale lifestyle in one of the few small wineries in Tasmania to grow, make and bottle their own wines on site. And things don't always go to plan.
A vineyard is pretty much right on the valley floor, so you do get the fog coming up the river, which causes humidity problems.
Yeah, and you throw a bit of rain in with that, and it's pretty challenging. The best oak.
The vineyard is Tim's responsibility and the winery is Beck's, and there's plenty of room for overlap.
You mean you're agreeing with me?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
So
it's a bit unusual.
So we're going to pick this week. We're not going to leave it a couple of weeks.
Because it tastes really good.
Just a week before vintage this year, Tim and Beck Duffy purchased the property from Beck's parents.
It's quite exciting to have it as our own place now, but I guess it's a bit daunting.
It was no small investment, and their vision was even bigger.
So I've just got a barrel delivery, but I'm really not sure why I ordered so many barrels this vintage. They just kind of keep turning up, and the invoices just keep coming in, and at some point I'm going to have to pay for them. So.
Tim and Beck have 2 young cellar hands in training. Max is 5 and Will is 3.
Yeah, they love to jump in and stomp a ferment, don't they? And
yep.
Plunge and...
Pretty helpful, although it generally takes about 10 times longer.
And the 5th member of the family is not nearly so helpful.
So I thought it'd be pretty cool to have a pet pig in the vineyard until he got a bit big, and basically now he just resides at cellar door.
It's no easy job growing a wine business these days, but they wouldn't have it any other way.
To be able to work, with your husband and your kids and have that sort of family life is pretty amazing to be able to do that.
It was a little while after vintage that
it's a long while after vintage.
The romance blossomed.
But it's someone that you can share a passion with, and I think it's an amazing opportunity for a couple to have.
Delamere was among the first vineyards planted in Tasmania's cool northeastern reaches. Ex-marine biologist Shane Holloway purchased the property in 2007. By 2011, he'd attracted his talented winemaker wife, Fran Austin, away from a senior winemaking position in a large company.
If not for Shane, I would never have had my own winery. I just would have been too scared because I am very conservative.
Contrasting personalities, yet this dynamic duo is a force to be reckoned with in the winery.
I'm sort of a bit try anything, do anything, and Fran's a bit more like, come on, let's think about how that's going to influence and affect. So we're a good couple like that, I think. So I just,
And there are plenty of points of tension.
If it's not on the weekly work program, it's not allowed to happen, so.
Every year there's a new product being laid down. Stop, enough.
And when the stress rises, Shane and Fran really step into their own.
Hi, Fran. We've got an injury. Yeah,
And I'll just have a quick look at it, but I think we'll just take you up to the...
I didn't see it, but apparently it's quite bad.
Yeah, it looks like a fair bit of blood there.
Who did it?
My partner cut my finger.
I didn't see his hand because it was behind the knees and then cut his fingers instead.
But it sounds like you will need stitches. Have you had stitches before?
No.
And there's more to the tension of this business than day-to-day band-aids in the vineyard and winery. Since Shane and Fran stepped in, Delamere has been on a very steep growth curve.
But looking back, I just sit there and go, what were we thinking? You know, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. Thinking, oh, it's just one business, but this is not one business. This is three businesses, and it's so complicated.
And I used to think it's hardly life and death, it's grapes. You know, I've got a sister who's an intensive care doctor, another one who's trying to find a cure to cancer. You know, it seems pretty low level. But then every now and then you get an email back from someone who says, we bought this bottle of wine several years ago, we had it at our daughter's wedding, it was wonderful, and it made us think about our trip to Tasmania and things like that. And yeah, you sort of realise that it does have an impact on people's lives from time to time in the nicest way.
We eat, live and breathe this business.
Yeah. I can't imagine having a job that was just 9 to 5. Really can't.
I couldn't do it. Just wouldn't know what to do with myself from 6 o'clock till midnight. But it's so much fun, and there's so much input. You never stop, so it's
once you're no longer the deer in the headlights, then you start to have some fun.
I wasn't so interested in actually selling wine to people as I was in perhaps going further behind the scenes and growing and making it. Partly because I don't really like spending a lot of time with people. Of course, the irony of that is now I spend most of my time with people.
Just 15 minutes south of Launceston is the estate of entrepreneur and Tasmanian property magnate Joseph Cromie.
On a world scale, Joseph Cromie Winery is just a medium-sized facility. But for the boutique industry of Tasmania, this place is one of the biggest.
Since day one, the pace at Joseph Cromie has been frenetic.
We've already built Joseph Cromie from scratch. In 9 years, we've become the 3rd largest winery in Tasmania.
Jeremy Dineen is one of the hardest working winemakers on the island.
I could be at work anywhere from 2 a.m. and normally going through till maybe 8, 9, 10 p.m. I don't often see my wife.
He's utterly obsessive with working, and that's only made more extreme with vintage.
My wife and I have 2 daughters, 6 and almost 4, 8+ weeks of the year. I'll go to work well and truly before they're awake and come home well and truly after they're in bed.
For Jeremy Dineen, there's more than just the pressure of winemaking. There's the responsibility of managing the entire estate.
You only get one chance a year to get it right. If you choose to be lazy at harvest time, you pay for it not just for the next year, but for the next several years.
This year, profitability is looking particularly tenuous.
If you look here, we've got a lot of very small berries, small berries and large berries on the same bunch. So this has reduced the weight of the fruit and hence our total crop. So we're going to have a much lower crop than usual.
How much lower this year compared to normal?
I suspect we're going to be down at least 40% across the vineyard.
It gives us all sorts of challenges. It makes growing your grapes more expensive, it makes making your wine more expensive, and perhaps even a bigger problem than that, it means we're likely to not have enough bottles to meet sales for the next 18 months.
It's the morning everything went wrong at Joseph Cromie. At 4 a.m, Jeremy arrived to find $15,000 worth of coolant on the floor in the winery, and within an hour, harvest was shut down when a hydraulic hose blew out on the harvesting machine.
It's been a difficult and expensive day.
But in spite of the long hours and all the stress, Jeremy Dineen would not be anywhere else.
You know, you can win as many medals and trophies and all that hoo-ha as you want. The best reward for making your wine is finding somebody who actually wants to drink it.
I was one of those lost teenagers, finished school and things like that, didn't really know what they wanted to do, and just went, let's try this, did a 1-year diploma in winemaking and down in Gisborne in the North Island. And it was the first time I've ever actually been in a classroom and actually got it, you know, so it was great. I was passionate and I was into it, and from then on I just charged.
In a tranquil bend of the Tamar River, surrounded by water on 3 sides, Tamar Ridge has been a powerhouse of Tasmanian winemaking for 2 decades. It found a new lease on life after being taken over by the Brown Brothers wine family in 2010. Today, Tom Wallace is responsible for one of the biggest wine portfolios in the state.
Brown Brothers Tasmanian facility out in Kaina is probably one of the largest facilities in Tasmania. It's a different place working probably to, you know, working at Joe Holyman's place or something where everything's very hands-on, or maybe even Joseph Cromie's where things are a little bit newer, a little bit more efficient, so they don't need quite so many people. It's probably taken a good 3-4 years this time to really get a feel for how it works and get it all going, and we're still working through, you know. The vintages in a cool climate are so much different from a vintage in Victoria. The busiest time is the part I love the most. I love this physical stuff, to be honest. I love that balance of getting out from behind the desk and getting into it, seeing the wines evolve. That's the exciting part for me. Yes.
The Brown family takes an active role in this process, even getting their hands dirty working vintage at Tamar Ridge.
Some of the Brown brothers, perhaps in different roles in the company, come down at vintage, and they usually do 4 or 5 days in the cellar. And this year we had Caroline Brown and Jude Walter came down again.
I'm 4th generation of the Brown family, and in my day job I'm PR manager at Brown Brothers. This is one of our reserve Pinot Noirs.
So that could be the top wine of the stuff.
Definitely. That's why they get me to do this. Not really.
What could possibly go wrong?
You name it, I've probably done it.
In the midst of a challenging vintage, this is a team that really pulls together.
Hey. Hi. Can I possibly ask for your help? There's 2 whitetails in the tank and I really hate spiders. Can you possibly get them out for me?
Yeah, we can do that for you. I didn't know they were whitetails.
I think they might be. I don't know though.
If I said 15 years ago, did I see myself being in this position, this would be where I wanted to be. I think it's a great opportunity, and you know, it's just, I don't think we've made the pinnacle of what we can do. I think there's so many great vintages ahead. Exciting place to be. Just Tasmania, just fantastic.
How do you capture the character of a vineyard in a bottle of wine?
I've been making wine from this vineyard for 14 years continuously, and there's something very special about that.
The Jantz vineyard was planted in the mid-1980s, just around the corner from Delamere in Pipers River. Jantz is a true sparkling house, making nothing but fine fizz, led by no-nonsense Nat Fryer and her energetic lady companion, Bob the dog.
Come on, Bob. Come on. Hey, Tyson.
The stresses of managing dozens of vineyards, pressing at multiple wineries, and then shipping all the juice back to the mainland make vintage a harrowing time for this resilient woman.
I'm making wine at 3 different wineries. Again, all over the state, so I need to be in those wineries as well. So that's a lot of my work. In a busy vintage, 16 hours a day, and you work every day. And whilst Tassie is small, if you look at it on the map in comparison to the mainland, it's just one wine region, and I have got growers all over the state, so I spend a lot of time driving.
Sort of in the 8-week period that I'm on the ground just looking at fruit for vintage, I'll easily do 15,000, 20,000 Ks. We're just going to head out to one of my favourite growers, Andrew Perry. He is an industry legend. Today we're going to make a decision about when we pick, which I think will be next week. Fruit.
The weather.
Not great. Not great.
Let's get out of it.
Yeah. So this was sampled before the rain last night, so we're picking sparkling fruit.
I've got a tentative slot booked Tuesday and Wednesday to get everything in, so I think we'll just stick with them. And
She's been doing it a long time now. She's a very talented winemaker.
it's not just a change of sugar and acid balance. It really is just an aromaticity here, like a fantastic rose petal note coming through.
She's always got the phone going and talking to 10 different people.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It looks pretty nasty coming over Georgetown, actually. That was my vineyard manager. So we're going to have to cancel the picking of the vintage rosé today, which breaks my heart. But vintage in cool climates where rain's a constant companion.
The stress points are when things change at the last minute.
In a vintage like this, every grape is precious.
I talk about it a lot as high risk and high return. I can't believe that this morning it was just all about the rain and dealing with that, everything that happened, to be here on this beach, you know? And this is Tasmania. It just recharges you coming out here, it really does.
Next time on People of the Vines, tension for our winemakers as a downpour threatens the start of harvest. Join me for all the action of vintage in Tasmania.